A 12-year-old girl boards a flight alone, clutching her designs for safer oxygen masks, a genius mind in a child's body. But when a veteran flight attendant slaps her across the face, calling her just another spoiled white kid, the cabin falls silent. Passengers gasp, phones rise to record, and humiliation hangs heavy in the air. Yet instead of tears, the girl makes one calm phone call. "Dad, buy this airline." What follows is a chain reaction no one could predict. Corporate empires shaken, reputations destroyed, and an entire industry forced to change, all because one child refused to be silenced. Claire Mitchell had never flown alone before. At just 12 years old, she was already a recognized prodigy in aerospace engineering. The kind of child who built working drone prototypes while her classmates struggled with basic science projects. This trip to MIT's International Junior Science Symposium was supposed to be a milestone, proof that her work designing safer oxygen masks for children had captured the attention of real engineers. She wore her favorite hoodie and clutched a slim case containing her prototype sketches, eager yet slightly nervous to be traveling without her father for the first time. Boarding the crowded plane, Claire smiled politely at the crew. Most returned the gesture, except Lydia Brooks, the head flight attendant. Lydia had worked for 12 years in the skies, priding herself on keeping order. To her, unaccompanied minors were trouble magnets, and this one, with designer sneakers and a case that screamed expensive, looked like a spoiled rich kid who thought rules didn't apply. Lydia's smile froze into a thin line as she scanned Claire's ticket. "Seat 14B," she said curtly, waving her along. When Claire reached her row, a man was already sitting in her assigned window seat. He barely glanced at her before grumbling, "Kids don't need window seats. Sit over there." Claire hesitated, glancing toward Lydia for help. Instead of assisting, Lydia strode down the aisle and snapped, "What's the problem here?" "This child thinks I should give up my seat," the man complained loudly. Lydia folded her arms and glared at Claire. "Is that true?" Claire answered softly, "It's the seat on my ticket, ma'am." Lydia's eyes narrowed. "Don't get smart with me. You're lucky we let you on board without an escort." Claire, stung by the tone, tried to explain. "I can sit anywhere if—" but she never finished the sentence. Lydia, in full view of surrounding passengers, raised her hand and slapped Claire across the face. The sharp crack echoed down the aisle. Gasps erupted. Phones lifted into the air. Claire's cheek burned, not from pain alone, but from the humiliation of being treated like she was nothing. Lydia loomed over her, voice dripping with contempt. "Just another spoiled white kid who thinks the world owes her." For a moment, Claire stood frozen, her young mind racing. Tears threatened but never came. Instead, she inhaled slowly, reached into her pocket, and pulled out her phone. With steady fingers, she tapped a single contact and lifted it to her ear. Her voice was quiet but unshaken. "Dad, buy this airline." Passengers exchanged shocked looks. Lydia blinked, caught off guard by the child's composure. Nobody could have predicted how much power those 5 words carried, or how the balance of control on this flight had just shifted. Claire Mitchell wasn't just any 12-year-old traveling to a science competition. She was already a name whispered among aerospace engineers. At 10, she had won the National Junior Mechanics Award with a prototype of a lightweight drone rotor that cut energy use by 30%. At 11, she was the youngest finalist at the International Future Engineers Expo, presenting her design for safer oxygen masks for children, a system now being considered by several manufacturers. Her room back home looked less like a child's bedroom and more like a hybrid between a workshop and a miniature laboratory. Her father, Jonathan Mitchell, had recognized her gift early. A former military pilot turned technology mogul, Jonathan built a multi-billion-dollar empire focused on aerospace and defense innovations. He was brilliant, intimidating in boardrooms, yet soft-spoken at home. "Always understand the system before you try to change it," he often told Claire. That mantra was the reason she refused to fly private on this trip, despite Jonathan's insistence. "Dad, I need to experience commercial flying like regular passengers," she'd said a week earlier while tightening the bolts on her oxygen mask prototype. "How can I fix safety flaws for kids if I don't see what kids actually go through?" Jonathan had paused, studying her determined expression, then reluctantly agreed. "Fine, but only if you promise to call me if there's any trouble at all." Claire's decision to book an economy ticket, her very first time outside the comfortable privacy of her family's jet, spoke volumes about her mindset. She wasn't chasing luxury. She was chasing knowledge. That was why she packed her hoodie instead of the blazer her father suggested, tied her curly blonde hair into a no-nonsense ponytail, and kept her prototype blueprints tucked securely in her travel case. On the flight, those blueprints had already drawn attention. They weren't simple sketches, but detailed schematics, proof that this young passenger was no ordinary traveler. What most people didn't know, what even Lydia Brooks couldn't have guessed, was that Claire's father was currently in delicate negotiations to acquire a controlling interest in the very airline she was sitting on. Jonathan Mitchell had been exploring ways to integrate Claire's child-focused safety innovations into commercial travel. The deal was nearly finalized, only days away from public announcement, but no one on board had any clue. For Claire, this trip was as much about testing passenger experience as it was about preparing for her presentation at MIT. She wanted to feel the reality, cramped legroom, indifferent service, and the vulnerability of traveling as a child without family support. That choice, meant for research, now intersected with Lydia's aggression. Claire didn't yet realize that her quiet phone call, "Dad, buy this airline," wasn't just an emotional response, but a literal trigger that could alter the future of everyone working on this plane. The sting from Lydia's slap still lingered on Claire's cheek, but she held her composure, fastening her seatbelt and focusing on her sketches. She had learned from her father that emotion clouded judgment, and right now she needed clarity more than tears. Lydia, however, wasn't finished. As drink service began, Lydia made her way down the aisle with a forced smile for every passenger, until she reached row 14. Her expression hardened. "We're running low on drinks," she said flatly, handing water to the man beside Claire and moving on without offering her anything. Claire kept quiet, pulling her own bottle from her bag. When meal trays followed, the same routine repeated. Lydia leaned over, passing food to the window seat passenger who had taken Claire's rightful seat and skipping Claire entirely. "Excuse me," Claire said softly. "I pre-ordered a vegetarian meal." Lydia didn't even glance at her. "No record of that. Maybe next time check your booking details before boarding." Several passengers turned their heads at the harshness of her tone, but no one spoke up. The humiliation escalated when a nearby passenger accidentally reclined his seat too far, crushing Claire's small travel case against the seat frame. Claire politely pressed the call button for assistance, but Lydia walked by twice without stopping. When Claire tried again, Lydia finally approached, arms crossed. "What now?" she asked loudly. "My case is stuck under the seat because the chair's jammed. Could you—" "Figure it out yourself, sweetheart," Lydia interrupted. "This kid thinks she owns the plane," she added, loudly enough for the surrounding passengers to hear. A chuckle came from across the aisle. A man in a business suit smirked and muttered, "Yeah, rich kids." He seemed entertained by Lydia's display, making Claire's isolation feel heavier. For a moment, the cabin felt hostile, and Claire's small frame seemed even smaller in her seat. But then, something subtle happened. The same man who laughed pulled out his phone and began recording, his expression changing from smug amusement to quiet unease as he realized how inappropriate Lydia's behavior had become. He shifted slightly, angling the camera so the interaction was clearly visible. Claire noticed but said nothing. Instead, she adjusted her case herself, retrieved her tablet, and focused on her oxygen mask designs, documenting the experience for her research. If this was how a simple seating issue and a meal request were handled, she thought grimly, what would happen in a real emergency? Lydia strutted down the aisle, unaware that her every word and gesture was now being captured from multiple angles. Around Claire, passengers exchanged concerned glances. whispering quietly. The tide of opinion was beginning to shift, even if Lydia hadn't realized it yet. Claire leaned forward to grab her water bottle from her bag, and in doing so, the slim folder on her lap slid to the floor, scattering sheets of paper and a small 3D printed prototype. She gasped softly and bent to retrieve them, but one page skidded out into the aisle. Ethan Lee, a man in his early 40s with sharp eyes and a quiet presence, reached down to pick up the stray paper. His brow furrowed as he glanced at the header. Child Oxygen Delivery System. Emergency Safety Upgrade. He recognized it instantly. His company had just signed a research contract with NASA to explore similar innovations, and here was a near-perfect schematic, designed, apparently, by a 12-year-old. "You designed this?" Ethan asked gently as he handed the paper back. Claire nodded shyly. "It's my project for MIT's Junior Science Symposium." Ethan's eyes widened slightly. "Incredible. These modifications could save lives." Before Claire could reply, Lydia appeared like a storm cloud. "Is there a problem here?" she snapped, snatching the remaining papers off the aisle floor and thrusting them into Claire's lap without care. Ethan straightened. "No problem. Just admiring her." "Sir," Lydia interrupted sharply, eyes narrowing, "I suggest you mind your own business and keep your phone put away. I've seen you recording earlier." Her tone carried the weight of authority, the kind that came from years of knowing most passengers wouldn't argue with a uniformed crew member. "I was just documenting," Ethan began, but Lydia cut him off, stepping closer and lowering her voice into something more menacing. "I have the authority to remove any passenger who causes trouble. Do you want to be met by security when we land?" The surrounding passengers froze. Ethan hesitated, clearly torn between speaking up for Claire and avoiding a scene that could get him forcibly removed. After a moment, he placed his phone slowly on his lap, jaw tight. Lydia smirked slightly, satisfied with her victory, and turned her glare toward Claire. "And you, sweetheart, keep your little school projects to yourself. This isn't show and tell." Claire clutched her folder, cheeks flushing, not from shame, but from the sting of seeing someone silenced on her behalf. She hated bullies, and Lydia had just silenced the only person who'd tried to stand up for her. Around them, passengers shifted uncomfortably, some whispering, some filming more discreetly. For the first time, Claire realized this wasn't just about her being mistreated. It was about the power one uniformed employee could wield over a plane full of people. And that thought, more than the sting of the slap or the insults, ignited a spark deep inside her. Claire sat still, gripping her folder tightly. Every instinct screamed to argue, to stand up and shout back at Lydia, but she heard her father's voice in her head. "Never waste energy fighting small battles when you can win the war." So instead, she pulled out her phone and opened a private encrypted app her father had installed. With one swipe, she sent a short message. "Dad, now." On the other side of the country, Jonathan Mitchell was seated in a Pentagon conference room, discussing a multi-billion-dollar aerospace defense project. Military generals, government officials, and corporate executives filled the table. His phone buzzed once. He glanced down, saw the message, and immediately stood. "Gentlemen, I need a moment," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. He stepped into the hallway, tapped Claire's name, and answered. "Are you safe?" Jonathan's voice was calm, but edged with steel. "Yes, Dad," Claire replied evenly. "But a flight attendant hit me and she's still harassing me." There was a silence. Then Jonathan spoke quietly. "Stay calm, sweetheart. I'm handling it." He ended the call and immediately dialed another number. "Divert legal to Denver International. Now, contact Coastal Airways Corporate Security. Tell them Jonathan Mitchell wants a full incident report. No, tell them he wants control." His aide sprang into action. The Pentagon meeting could wait. Nothing came before his daughter's safety. Back on the plane, Lydia continued her routine, blissfully unaware that her actions had triggered an invisible chain reaction at the highest levels of corporate power. She passed Claire again, eyeing the folded papers in her lap. "Still playing with crayons, kid? Don't drop them again," she said with a sarcastic smile. Claire didn't respond, didn't even look up. Instead, she slid her phone back into her pocket and returned to sketching notes in her travel journal, documenting every detail. How her meal request was denied, how her seat issue was ignored, how even a helpful passenger had been threatened into silence. She wasn't just experiencing discrimination, she was building a record of systemic failure. Around her, passengers whispered more loudly now, glancing between Lydia and Claire. Phones recorded quietly from several angles. Yet Lydia, confident in her perceived authority, carried on as if nothing could touch her. Claire exhaled slowly and focused on her drawings. "This isn't about me," she thought. "This is about every kid who flies alone." She didn't know exactly what her father was doing at that moment, but she trusted him completely. And for the first time since the slap, a small, confident smile formed on her face. Something was coming. Something bigger than Lydia Brooks could possibly imagine. 20 minutes after Lydia's slap echoed through the cabin, the internet was already roaring. A passenger 2 rows behind Claire had uploaded a short, shaky clip to social media showing the flight attendant's hand striking a child, followed by Claire's chillingly calm response. "Dad, buy this airline." Within minutes, the hashtag #JusticeForClaire was trending across multiple platforms. Comments poured in. "Who slaps a child? This girl's composure is legendary. Who is her dad?" In a luxury sedan outside the Pentagon, Jonathan Mitchell reviewed the viral clip sent by his aide. His face hardened. He had already been in talks to purchase a controlling interest in Coastal Airways for $4 billion, a deal meant to expand his company's aerospace research. Now, he made a different call. "I'm not buying them anymore," he said coldly into his secure line. "I'm taking them over." The aide hesitated. "Sir, you mean—" "Yes, call the board. Initiate emergency proxy acquisition. I want full operational control in 72 hours. Inside Coastal Airways corporate headquarters, executives scrambled as phones rang non-stop. "Have you seen this hashtag?" one marketing officer shouted, shoving a tablet toward the CEO. The video had already surpassed 5 million views, and comments identifying Claire Mitchell as the daughter of Jonathan Mitchell, aerospace billionaire, were spreading like wildfire. The CEO's face went pale. "He's buying us. He was buying us." A legal counsel corrected him quietly. "He's not buying anymore. He's taking over." Back on the plane, Claire noticed passengers whispering and glancing at her with a mix of sympathy and awe. Someone mouthed, "Is it true? Your dad's buying the airline?" Claire only shrugged. She wasn't interested in boasting. Her focus remained on her notes, but the ripple effect was undeniable. Phones buzzed throughout the cabin as friends and family on the ground sent messages. "You're on the viral flight. That kid's dad is Jonathan Mitchell." Lydia, oblivious to the storm brewing outside her control, continued her duties, though with an edge of irritation as more passengers silently recorded her every move. She had no idea that every glare, every dismissive gesture was now evidence being packaged for millions of viewers. On the ground, stock traders were already reacting. Coastal Airways shares dropped 8% within the first hour of trading after the video posted, triggering early alerts on Wall Street. Meanwhile, Mitchell Aerospace stock began climbing, investors anticipating a seismic shift in the industry. For Claire, none of this was visible yet. She only knew her father had answered her one-word plea. Whatever he was doing, it was big. She gripped her folder tighter, unaware that her quiet choice to stay calm had set off a corporate and public relations earthquake powerful enough to shake the entire aviation sector. The captain's voice broke through the tense cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, due to an onboard incident, we will be making an unscheduled landing at Denver International. Please remain seated." Gasps rippled through the passengers. Claire sat quietly, hands folded on her lap, her cheek still faintly red but her eyes calm, focused. When the plane touched down, a convoy of security vehicles waited at the gate. As soon as the doors opened, 2 corporate security agents in black suits stepped aboard, followed by a pair of attorneys carrying sleek leather portfolios. Their presence radiated authority, turning every curious head toward the front of the cabin. Lydia straightened her uniform and put on a confident smile. "Thank goodness you're here," she said loudly, gesturing toward Claire. "This child has been disruptive the entire flight. I had to act to maintain safety." She turned to the passengers as though expecting nods of agreement. Instead, silence greeted her. Several passengers held their phones high, recording every word. One man in business attire stood up, voice firm. "She didn't do anything. You hit her for no reason." A chorus of murmurs followed. "I saw it too. It's on video." The lead attorney, a tall woman with sharp eyes, stepped forward. "Are you Lydia Brooks?" "Yes, ma'am," Lydia replied, chin high. "You're aware this incident is under corporate and legal review?" "I'm aware this passenger," Lydia pointed at Claire, "has been nothing but trouble." That was when a ground crew member leaned in, whispering urgently in Lydia's ear. "You just slapped the daughter of the man about to buy this airline." The words hit her like turbulence. Lydia's face drained of color. "What?" she stammered, glancing at Claire, who now looked at her steadily, not with hatred, but with something worse. Calm disappointment. The attorney turned to Claire. "Miss Mitchell, are you all right?" "Yes, thank you," Claire said softly. The respect in the attorney's tone contrasted so sharply with Lydia's earlier contempt that passengers exchanged looks of disbelief. One by one, passengers stood to speak. "I have video," a woman announced, holding up her phone. "Me too," said another. Even the man who had chuckled earlier in the flight stepped forward, looking guilty. She was out of line. The kid didn't do anything wrong. Lydia tried to protest, but the evidence was overwhelming. The attorney's voice cut through firmly. "Ms. Brooks, please step aside. You are relieved of duty pending investigation." Applause erupted spontaneously, echoing through the cabin, not for humiliation, but for justice. Claire remained seated, shoulders back, silently watching as the power dynamic flipped completely in less than 5 minutes. Lydia Brooks stood frozen near the front of the cabin, her earlier confidence shattered. The corporate attorney repeated firmly, "Ms. Brooks, you are relieved of duty, effective immediately, pending full investigation." A uniformed airport security officer stepped forward, collecting Lydia's crew badge and tablet. Gasps rippled through the passengers as they watched a senior flight attendant, usually an untouchable authority, stripped of power in real time. "You can't do this," Lydia whispered, her voice cracking. "I've been flying for 12 years. "You struck a child," the attorney interrupted coldly. "And it's on video." At that moment, the man who had once laughed at Claire back in Chapter 3 stood up, his face pale. I need to say something." He walked down the aisle, holding up his phone. "I was wrong to laugh earlier. I didn't think it would get this bad. I recorded the entire incident, uncut. It shows everything. Her ignoring the kid's meal request, refusing to help, and the slap." Claire turned, surprised. The man looked at her directly. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have sided with her, even for a second." He offered his phone to the attorney, who immediately secured it as evidence. Other passengers murmured their support. "You did the right thing now. Good on you." Phones clicked, capturing the moment of apology. Within minutes, clips of the man's confession began spreading on social media, amplifying the narrative. Claire Mitchell was no longer just a victim. She was becoming a symbol of dignity under fire, a 12-year-old standing calm while adults around her faltered. In the VIP lounge at Denver International, Jonathan Mitchell arrived flanked by legal advisors. He hugged Claire tightly before facing the assembled press already gathering outside. "My daughter showed more professionalism in a single moment than some people do in a career," he said, voice firm. "As of tonight, Coastal Airways will be under immediate operational review, with new policies addressing unaccompanied minors, passenger rights, and staff conduct. Those changes begin now." One reporter called out, "Mr. Mitchell, are you still purchasing the airline?" Jonathan's expression hardened. "No, I'm not purchasing it," he replied. "I'm taking control." That clip alone, his calm but devastating announcement, spread almost as fast as the original slap video. By nightfall, #Justice for Claire surpassed 30 million mentions, and Lydia Brooks became the trending face of corporate arrogance and downfall. Claire sat beside her father, holding her folder of designs. She wasn't smiling in triumph, but in quiet relief. What had begun as humiliation was transforming into systemic change before her eyes. And it was only just beginning. By sunrise the next morning, Coastal Airways was in full-blown crisis. The company's stock plummeted 20% in a single trading day as investors scrambled to distance themselves from the viral scandal. The video captured by passenger Maria Torres, a clean, unedited recording of Lydia's slap and subsequent humiliation, had racked up 50 million views in just 24 hours. News outlets replayed it on loop, while hashtags like Justice for Claire and #Reform the Skies trended globally. Corporate sponsors began making frantic calls. One advertising partner announced, "We are suspending all campaigns with Coastal Airways until they demonstrate meaningful change." A major travel blogger summed up public sentiment. "This isn't a bad apple, it's the whole barrel." And indeed, it quickly became clear that Lydia Brooks was not an isolated problem. Former employees began stepping forward, emboldened by the attention the case received. A former junior attendant posted anonymously on social media. Lydia was notorious for targeting unaccompanied minors. Complaints got buried because management thought she was efficient at handling disruptions. Another ex-supervisor admitted, "There were internal warnings about discriminatory practices, but leadership didn't want negative press. They told us to manage it internally and move on." The revelations shifted the narrative from one rogue employee to a systemic failure in company culture. People weren't just angry at Lydia. They were angry at Coastal Airways itself for allowing a hostile environment toward vulnerable passengers, especially children, to fester unchecked. In response, labor unions representing flight attendants released a statement distancing themselves from Lydia's actions, calling for mandatory sensitivity and child passenger training industry-wide. Civil rights groups joined in, demanding congressional hearings on passenger treatment standards. Claire watched some of these news segments from a hotel suite, sitting cross-legged on the bed with her laptop open. Seeing adults, professionals with decades of experience, finally admit what she had experienced firsthand was sobering. "It wasn't just her," Claire murmured to her father. Jonathan nodded gravely. "That's why we're going to change it at the root." Meanwhile, Coastal's board of directors called an emergency session. Investors wanted reassurance, but Jonathan's acquisition team had already moved aggressively, leveraging public outrage to accelerate a full takeover bid. Analysts debated on financial channels. This might be the fastest hostile takeover in aviation history. For Lydia, now officially terminated, the fallout was immediate. Her name was trending alongside words like disgrace and accountability. Yet even as she became a symbol of personal misconduct, the real story had evolved. This was bigger than one slap. It was about an industry's blind spots. Within 48 hours, #Justice for Claire dominated every major social media platform, trending not just nationally but worldwide. Millions of users posted their own travel horror stories, from ignored meal requests to overt discrimination against minors, seniors, and people with disabilities. The video of Lydia striking Claire became a rallying cry, sparking a broader conversation. If this could happen to a billionaire's daughter, what about kids without powerful parents? Television networks dedicated entire segments to passenger rights, inviting aviation experts, child psychologists, and former flight crew to weigh in. A viral tweet captured the mood. Claire stayed calm when most adults would have broken down. That's not just bravery, it's leadership. The 12-year-old, once an anonymous prodigy, was now a symbol of resilience and accountability. Amid the outrage, something surprising happened. Hope began to surface. A federal legislator, Senator Elaine Torres, held a press conference with Jonathan and Claire standing beside her. "Today," Torres announced, "I am introducing the Child Passenger Bill of Rights, ensuring unaccompanied minors are treated with dignity, have guaranteed access to assistance, and are protected from mistreatment in all forms. Cameras flashed as she continued. This is inspired by Claire Mitchell, who showed remarkable strength in the face of unacceptable treatment. The room erupted with applause. Reporters immediately broadcast the announcement live, and within hours the proposed legislation became the top political topic online. Commentators described the move as turning pain into progress, and hashtags evolved from anger, had justice for Claire, to optimism, #Claire. Inspires change. For Claire, it was overwhelming. She had boarded a flight expecting to study seat spacing and meal service. Now she was standing next to a U.S. senator, hearing policy changes proposed because of her experience. "I didn't want revenge," Claire whispered to her father as cameras panned away. "I wanted things to be better for kids like me." Jonathan smiled, squeezing her shoulder. "That's exactly what's happening." Public opinion polls showed a dramatic shift. 87% of respondents supported stronger protections for young travelers, and donations to passenger rights organizations spiked. Meanwhile, Coastal Airways competitors scrambled to announce their own reforms preemptively, fearing backlash. Media outlets also highlighted Claire's engineering talent, noting her oxygen mask design could become standard in future aircraft retrofits. The story had transformed from scandal to movement, inspiring young people everywhere. One viral comment summed it up perfectly. She walked on as a kid with a blueprint and walked off as the blueprint for change. Jonathan Mitchell stood at the podium in Coastal Airways' main headquarters, now buzzing with press and employees eager to hear how the company would recover from its worst scandal in history. Beside him stood Claire, looking small next to the corporate backdrop but radiating calm confidence. "Effective immediately," Jonathan began, his deep voice carrying through the packed hall. "We are launching the Child Passenger Equity Program, a complete overhaul of how unaccompanied minors are treated on every flight." He gestured to the large display screen behind him, listing key reforms: mandatory empathy and sensitivity training for all flight crew, body cameras discreetly integrated into crew uniforms to ensure transparency and accountability, a public passenger feedback system with quarterly reports available online, upgraded safety seating designed specifically for children, based on Claire Mitchell's award-winning prototype. The audience broke into applause at the last item, cameras flashing as Claire's design appeared on screen. It featured adjustable seat harnesses for smaller bodies, oxygen masks built with her airflow enhancements, and ergonomic cushioning to reduce injury risk during turbulence. Jonathan smiled down at his daughter. These improvements are the work of Claire Mitchell, 12 years old, already a visionary in aviation safety, and as of today, she is officially joining Coastal Airways as our youngest ever safety innovation advisor. The room erupted into cheers. Claire's cheeks flushed, but she kept her posture straight, determined to prove she belonged there. Reporters shouted questions. "How does it feel to be an advisor at 12? Do you plan to keep designing?" Claire simply answered, "I just want kids to feel safe when they fly, that's all." The announcement reverberated across the industry. Competitors rushed to adopt similar transparency policies, fearing public backlash if they didn't keep up. Civil rights groups applauded the integration of accountability measures, calling it a new era of ethical aviation. Aviation blogs praised Claire's seat design as years ahead of industry standards. Behind the scenes, executives marveled at how quickly Jonathan had turned disaster into innovation. Stock prices for Coastal Airways, now under Mitchell Aerospace control, began climbing steadily, restoring investor confidence. For Claire, the moment was surreal. A week ago, she was just a kid flying alone to present at a science fair. Now she had her name etched in company history and a voice in shaping airline policy. As the press conference ended, Jonathan whispered, "Proud of you, kiddo. You didn't just change this airline. You may have changed the industry." Claire smiled, gripping the strap of her prototype bag. "Then let's get back to work, Dad." 1 year later, The airline, once known as Coastal Airways, had a new name emblazoned on its fleet: Mitchell Airways. The rebranding symbolized more than a change in ownership. It reflected a transformation in philosophy. Mitchell Airways was now recognized as the most equitable and child-friendly airline in the world. Customer satisfaction ratings soared, lawsuits dropped to record lows, and its innovative child passenger equity program became a model adopted by carriers worldwide. Inside a grand international aviation summit in Geneva, Claire Mitchell stood on stage, holding a crystal award almost as tall as her forearm. The plaque read, "Global Safety Innovation Award, Claire Mitchell, age 12." The audience of executives, engineers, and lawmakers rose in a standing ovation. Claire, dressed in a modest navy dress and clutching her prototype oxygen mask system, approached the microphone. Her voice was steady, clear, and far older than her years. "A year ago, I boarded a flight expecting to observe how passengers experience air travel. I didn't expect to be slapped. But that moment didn't break me. It built something bigger. A single slap didn't change me. It changed an entire industry." The hall fell silent for a beat, then erupted in applause. Some audience members wiped tears from their eyes, moved by the juxtaposition of Claire's youth and the enormity of her achievement. In the front row, Jonathan Mitchell watched with quiet pride, recalling every moment since that day. The emergency landing, the viral video, the policy overhaul, and his daughter stepping into history as the youngest advisor in aviation. For him, this award wasn't just recognition of Claire's brilliance, but of her character, the calm resilience she had shown when the world expected anger. After the ceremony, journalists crowded around her. "What's next for you, Claire?" one asked. She smiled shyly. "Back to work. There's still so much to fix." Another reporter asked, "Do you ever think about Lydia Brooks?" Claire paused. "I hope she's doing better too. Change isn't just about policies, it's about people learning to be better." Her words quickly trended online, sparking hashtags like #Claire, Change the Skies, and #FromSlap2Standard. Mitchell Airways released a commemorative video highlighting their progress. Upgraded child safety seating, bias training programs, and body cam integration, all inspired by a 12-year-old girl. As the summit closed, Claire stood at the edge of the stage, gazing at a Mitchell Airways jet taking off through the massive glass windows. She whispered to herself, "Safe skies for everyone." The camera flashes faded, but the legacy was permanent. A young girl's dignity had reshaped aviation worldwide, leaving audiences not just proud of her, but inspired by what one voice, even at 12, could accomplish.